Okay, so I reviewed the third film, and now I'm going to backtrack and talk about the first two open water films, Open Water 1 and Open Water 2 Adrift. So today we're going to be talking about Open Water, the first movie, and it has been God knows how long since I last watched this movie. It has had to be at least several years since I last watched this movie, and I didn't really remember anything about the movie. I remember there were two people stranded in the ocean trying to survive, and that's really the minimum of of memory I have with this movie. And so I kind of went into this viewing with an open mind, not really remembering how the movie wrapped up or some of the scenarios that they experienced as the movie went along. So I went into this movie with a whole new experience, with a new set of eyes. And this is a movie that I enjoy. But now let me explain that. The first 40 minutes of this film, I think, is pointless. Um, it doesn't do anything to set up characters, it doesn't do anything to move the story forward. There's just a whole bunch of random scenes, and it's very dull, it's very unmotivated, uninspired, and it's just boring to me. And the first 40 minutes could have been good if there was some more character to go off, if there was actual, character building scenes within the setup of this film. And then when you do eventually get the characters in the ocean and they are stranded and they are stuck in these death defying scenarios, you really don't care. Like, saying that, like, you do want them to survive because, they were kind of here on a vacation and just to have some fun, and then they're put into hell here. They're basically put into hell on Earth. They're put into a scenario that they have no control over. And to me, that's the scariest part of the movie. And the other thing with the setup of this film is it's just a whole bunch of idiotic scenes just interjected in this film. Like, there's a softcore porno sex scene in the film that doesn't really add anything to the film. And yeah, I don't know, the first 40 minutes I could have gone without. I feel like if you start the movie from when they actually get on the boat, I feel like that's when, you're seeing what you want to see. But in saying that, I feel like the setup of this film could have been better if they just had, as I said, more character to go off. And it seems like this is a big thing in all of the open water films. It seems like this franchise doesn't know how to present likable characters to the audience. And because I rewatched Cage Dive, and that film has the most unlikable characters, I think, in the entire franchise. Just because of the drama and the relationship that's kind of going on between all the characters in that film. And I just don't know why these films present characters that you want to die. And I get that, yes, this film's, based on true events and all that. But, you know, this is a film recreating the real life story. How much of that story is real, I don't know. I've done a little bit of research on the actual events of this film, and from what I can read, the film does sound pretty accurate and pretty close to what the real life story is of this movie. And I feel like if you cut the first 40 minutes of this film out, and the film opened with them getting on the boat and then them going out to the ocean, like, there's your introduction. Like, it's a tight, compact, tense, situation. I feel like that would have been a much better opening than the one we got. But then, yeah, like, to me, it's just a missed opportunity. It's just a missed opportunity. Like, you have this setup where we're introduced to our main characters, and then the film doesn't do much besides that. Like, we learn the characters' names, we learn that they are married or something, and yeah, that's it. Like, that's the maximum of character development that is between this couple. That's it. That's all. Everything else is just everything else is the beef in the runtime to make this feature length. But anyways, yeah, that's my criticism on the opening, on the setup of this film. So when they actually do get into the ocean and they do get stranded, this is where the film becomes the film that you've been waiting for. The film, like, it's what the trailers promised, it's what the poster promised, and so we've been waiting for this to happen. So when it does happen, it does live up to it. I don't really remember the movie being scary, but upon this viewing, there is a lot in this movie that it does so well. I will give the movie credit for presenting a real life scenario to us, because one thing I don't see in horror movies that often is when we see the characters actually trying to calm down each other, actually have a normal humanized conversation to add some realism to the sequence and to the situation they're in, to kind of get their mind off the death-defying, possibly, possible death scenario that they are in. And so all of those conversations in this movie I loved. Like, I've never seen a horror movie do it this well, and it balances it with the tension and with the suspense really well. And the tension, I have to talk about that because the tension is something that is done so well in this movie. I know not a whole lot of people have seen this franchise because I don't hear it, talked about in the horror community all that often, or if at all anymore. So the tension in this film, like, it really gets you. There were some scenes in this film where I was rooting for the characters to survive, not because I cared for them, but because these are a reflection of the real life people that lived and breathed this scenario. And so, on that end, you kind of care for the characters in that regard. But there's a very tense scene with a jellyfish that I thought was very tense. There's a scene with quite a few sharks that I thought was very tense. And this style of filmmaking, like the whole guerrilla, kind of really getting in your face, very very kind of rough around the edges, kind of camera work here, I think works very well in this movie. I think it's a style that really, it makes you feel like you are in the ocean with them, because a lot of the camera shots that you do see in this film are from the ocean level, and so I really like that because it made it kind of feel like a first person experience for the audience, like you were in this journey into hell with these characters. And so I really liked that style of filmmaking here. And then as the film goes along, it descends more into madness, and the camera work and the tone changes for the film, and the characters start freaking out more. Like there's nothing around them besides ocean, besides yards and yards of ocean. And just like, I really liked the guerrilla style filmmaking that they went with this film. I think it really helped with the tension for this film. I think it definitely gave the film an advantage here. And the ending of the film is the last thing I want to bring up here, because I had no idea this was the ending of the film. I had no memory of what the ending of this film was or how it wrapped up, and I was shocked. I was shocked with the ending of this film because it's depressing. It's sad. Like, our main character gives her life to the sharks. Like, there's this horde of sharks surrounding her. There is no escaping them. Like, they are like circling her 24/7 in this film. Um, and she just, she removes her air tank or oxygen tank and puts herself underwater and basically just gives her life to the sharks. That is one of the most crushing deaths, I think, in any horror film. And because to to just kind of lay in the water and kind of see your fate in front of you, see how you are going to die. Like, you're either going to die by the ocean or you're going to die by the sharks. And to kind of see, like 12 sharks swimming around you and knowing in your brain that this is how you're going to die, like, that is such a depressing way to go. And I was shocked with how they wrapped that up, because I did not expect, like, I kind of expected maybe one of the two to survive, but for both of them to die, it it's a very heartfelt and emotional ending. And another scene that is heartfelt is when the wife has to push her husband away and basically give him as bait to the sharks. And to actually see that with your own eyes, to see his body kind of being dragged down, like, this is the type of shit that you will never be able to unsee. Even if you did live through this event, you would never be able to unsee some of the stuff that you saw. You would never live life the same way. And I think, just to me, that's what I really loved about Open Water, is it's such a grounded film. It doesn't, try to be anything amazing. It tries to keep the situation as basic and as simple and as realistic as possible. And I really liked the low budget feel to this film. I think it's directed with a lot of passion behind it. And if I've read my information correct, the sharks in this film are actually real. And, like, they actually filmed with real sharks. There was like a featurette on the DVD. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube as well, so look it up. But I believe in certain scenes they actually filmed with real sharks, and so, like, I really like that, because it does, add more to the realism, of the film, instead of, going CGI. You guys know how I feel about CGI. Let's see, is there anything else I've missed in this movie? Yeah, there's these scenes when they see a boat in the distance and, they try to get the boat's attention. Those scenes are also heartfelt as well, because your freedom is just like, it's just over there. We just have to get its attention. And just, like, there's so many scenes in this film that, if you were to put yourself in the character's position, I would do exactly what they're doing. Like, I would try to keep everyone in my group as stable as possible. I would try to keep them as calm as possible, because that's the only way you will get through this. Like, if you panic and splash around, more sharks are just going to come to you. And so the film, it really understands its characters, and it really understands, it really, like, as the main character kind of says, I'm probably jumping around in this review a lot to talk about a variety of things, but there are a lot of things I do want to talk about in this review. And yeah, like the husband of the film, or our male character, he he's he's big into nature and survival kind of documentaries, and so that applies a big part to how they've survived this far. And so I did like that segment of his character. I thought that did kind of play a nice part into the story of the film there. But at the end of the day, this is a depressing movie. This is a film that I think it really hits a lot of the emotion. It it gets the tension correct. This is this is I would not really consider this a shark thriller. Because while the sharks are there, this is much more of a survival horror. This is much more of a film where it's presenting the horrors of the ocean to you. And this is a film I would definitely recommend to anyone. So check Open Water out.